welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Tracy Ring. I am the Chief Data Officer and Head of Global Generative AI for Accenture. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Matt Hough, Cintas CIO. Matt, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. Really happy to be here.
I'm going to ask you the hard questions. So,
Sure.
What are the elements of change management and communication as you're balancing this, to reinforce those experiments or even to amplify that disruption? How are you tackling that?
Yeah, I mean, it's we kind of made a draconian approach early on, which we realized wasn't the best approach by just saying, okay, don't use it till we learn about it. So now what we're doing is we're setting up a governance organization, a steering committee, to help us understand the use cases that we can put together, but also communicate out how to use it effectively, and also set up guidelines and training for our internal employee partners to use generative AI if it's outside the system, right? So there's really two sides of the story that we have. We have the internal that we use our own data on, and then we have the external, how people can be more productive. And we're trying to balance out both by putting that steering committee together to come up with some of those governance rules and education to handle that change management on what's the difference.
Yeah, I like that mindset. And, most of the time we don't think about technology in the same way that we would a human, but almost this concept of onboarding generative AI, just as if it was a digital worker. Some of the spirit of that, it sounds like how you all have embraced it. I guess pivoting into this concept around adoption, how are you tracking it? How are you driving it? Any ideas or thoughts on that angle?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. First, it's about making sure you have a model that can create some value. So for instance, we picked some controllable areas that are pretty static, and one of those controllable areas is like the configurations and security configurations within our IT organization. So the use case was, how do I get better insights into what the configuration would be if I add something else to it without putting that at risk because I missed it? And creating a large language model around that we believe is going to create a lot more value, and the adoption will be pretty high. As far as measuring the adoption, we don't have a metric yet to do that. As I said, it's the early days. It's more we hope we'll deliver, let's use. But I believe within the next 6 to 12 months, we'll come up with a way to, if people are using this type of technology, how do we ensure that it's being used appropriately? But number two is, we realize we also have to make sure that we track drift within the models itself and the data, so we don't have unintended results. So we're looking at supplementing the current organization to also look at drift, but we need to train on that as well over time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I would say that, you alluded to the fact that you're forming a board or a steering committee or governance around it. It's an interesting pivot to see, that broader look. We've had architectural review boards and technology forever, but this is sort of a new flavor of that, most certainly, and grappling with new and interesting challenges for certain.
Yeah. And Tracy, I think that that is one of the keys to set your pathway correct. And when I say we have our steering committee or our committee, our AI board, it's from all the stakeholders in the business, everybody from legal to divisional, I would say business process leaders. So we make sure that at the end of the day, we get the best outcome that is with the best data that is safe for us to use. Because once we start going down this road even heavier than we are now, we don't want to steer off a cliff because we're naive around what the implications are using certain type of data. And what I mean by data, it could be anything from PII to just even product data. And that is very sensitive in a lot of places, that if it's not governed correctly or used correctly, could produce unintended results for us as a company.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And this idea of, and I'll use your metaphor of driving off a cliff. One of the things I talk to organizations about a lot is, we don't necessarily plan to, take a technological intervention, but I think we're faced at a time where, we need to be able to intervene for bad actors or stop, cease, mitigate, and even insofar as untrained, right? So the idea of teaching a technology to forget something, right? So
Yeah.
definitely unprecedented. And I love that the way that you've got that multifunctional group of broader folks to weigh in around that. I guess how do you think about the broader talent angle around this and how you're skilling or growing? Because AI is so pervasive. I see sort of both sides of it where it's hard to upskill, but at the same time, everybody's so excited about it. Are you guys grappling with the same?
Yeah, I think we put in several different buckets. Number one, we're coming up with this concept, our group called the business scientists. I think a long time ago, not a long time ago, in technology years, a few years ago, there was a big push for data scientists. And there was a big disconnect between the data scientists and what the business operations really need. So with generative AI and AI type products, we're able to come up with, I would say, the business scientists where these models are already curated for us. They're just being consumed by us. So we don't have to create them from scratch. So it's created this new group called the business scientists. So that's one thing, that's a consumer that helps with the use cases. The other side of the story is we're seeing a lot of opportunities for partners that were never in IT before and defining what IT is to actually come in and now with some of these generative AI models to help us develop code to help them become more productive. And that actually will accelerate their learning curve to be actually get to a different level of developer over the next year or two, where it typically takes like 3 or 4 years to get really good at something. We think that's a massive accelerator for us. So that is a pretty exciting thing we're looking at and starting to do right now. Actually, we're taking people from the business and pulling them on IT and train them on that because we believe that IT is a strategic. I would say weapon is a little heavy-handed, but it is very big strategy for us to have a strong IT to actually develop all these things over time. So having those employees that get scaled up pretty quickly in the IT organization where they typically would never thought they would be before is pretty important to us.
Thanks so much for joining me today. And you can visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.